Over the course of their lives, dogs and their human companions form incredibly powerful and enduring ties. However, witnessing dogs mourn the loss of their masters who die before them may be incredibly heartbreaking. But one dog in particular, who patiently slept by its owner's grave for an incredible 12 years, was the epitome of loyalty. However, what followed was unquestionably stunning, leaving everyone in tears and a state of grief. Growing up in houses full of these adorable furry friends, Miguel Guzman's lifelong love for dogs was clear from an early age. He loved their vivacious personalities and their constant love, demonstrating that a dog's devotion was always guaranteed. As Miguel grew older and moved out of his family's house, the notion of owning the dog started to take shape. Confident in his abilities to love and care for the animal, he visited a shelter and discovered a gorgeous German Shepherd puppy named Capitan. When Miguel took him up, he couldn't help but be drawn in by Capitan's captivating big eyes and happy tail wag. The shelter employees joked that the dog had already decided who would be his future owner. Thankfully, Miguel quickly consented and took in the sweet and endearing Pooch. As they became closer and exchanged experiences back home, their relationship blossomed. To keep active, they took leisurely strolls through the city and went on a variety of activities. Capitan loved going to the park and playing with sticks, balls, and other dogs while engaging in joyful chases. After his vigorous playtime, he would put his sleepy head on Miguel's lap as they sat together on a park seat. Because of his intense love for the small puppy and the comfort and company Capitan provided to his apartment, Miguel felt a strong bond with Capitan. He occasionally felt more comfort in the companionship of dogs than in people, and he was ecstatic to have Capitan by his side. But when Miguel became very ill, things took a surprising turn. Knowing that he only had a few weeks to live, he kept his fight with throat cancer a secret because it prevented him from taking his beloved walks or even from leaving the house. Miguel was determined to give Capitan a happy and amazing life in spite of the terrible suffering he had to undergo. Amidst his efforts, Miguel would tenderly rub his faithful and adoring canine companion. His loving dog, Capitan, would sit by his side and provide company while they watched TV together. Miguel remained steadfast until his unavoidable death when he failed to awaken. Capitan was seen sleeping soundly on Miguel's lap in his apartment. Given that Capitan had been with their son in his last moments, Miguel's distraught parents found great solace in the presence of the devoted dog. Miguel's parents started planning Miguel's funeral while Capitan was at the family residence. But the devoted dog's actions took an unexpected and worrisome turn. Capitan deviated from his normal behavior and wandered around the unfamiliar environment, displaying symptoms of loneliness and longing for the love and care that Miguel had shown him. He found it difficult to be happy. He became less hungry and felt a noticeable sorrow. Capitan lamented the death of his cherished owner and best friend, just as Miguel's family did. The defeat was too much to handle, so Capitan made the decision that shocked everyone. He fled. Capitan grabbed the chance as soon as the door opened and ran down the street. Miguel had just been buried, and the family was too distraught to go after the escaping dog right away. However, they were devastated by a really moving scenario they came upon when they eventually started looking for him. They were aware that Capitan had found himself in the most peculiar place, a revelation that greatly troubled Miguel's family. In a remarkable turn of events, Capitan had traveled to the cemetery where Miguel was buried. The dog was lying on top of his deceased owner's grave, perhaps trying to provide warmth in the muddy, freezing ground. Miguel's parents were profoundly affected by this sight. As he tried to put on a collar to guide Capitan home, his father gave him a gentle pat. But it was clear that the dog was hesitant to leave the hallowed land as he backed up a few steps. The family was unable to persuade him to leave the last burial place of his cherished previous owner, despite their best efforts. Thankfully, Miguel's mother was able to grab the dog and carry him home. But as soon as they got back, Capitan escaped once more and hurried back to the graveyard. He was clearly grieving deeply, and he was adamant about sticking with his master. The family assumed Capitan wasn't prepared to leave his cherished owner's grave since they understood how attached he was. They believed Capitan would finally decide to go home on his own terms. The family agreed to let Capitan remain at the cemetery in light of this. They regularly brought food and drink to their son's grave every day. Before coming to rest on the cemetery once more, Capitan would thankfully indulge in these offerings. Capitan kept his unwavering vigil in the cemetery, looking tired and lonely, but he never wanted to go. This special friendship persisted over the years that followed. Sometimes Capitan would walk off, picking up a stick and setting it on top of the grave, as if he were trying to play fetch with his deceased master. Such exchanges were, of course, unfulfilled. Capitan started to show the symptoms of age over time, including a graying coat and a decline in movement. He frequently chose to sit rather than walk about, as if he was happy to be still. Every day when Miguel's family came to visit, Capitan would bark a hearty greeting and wag his tail joyfully. They would sit next to the devoted dog, who would be petted and showered with love. Long since Miguel's family had given up on ever bringing Capitan home, they took comfort in the knowledge that their son had a devoted friend to keep him company. Capitan's age started to catch up with him as time went on. He welcomed Miguel's family with the same enthusiasm despite his restrictions, letting them caress him as they always did. But his health started to decline. His movement got more difficult as his vision deteriorated. Miguel's family sought the opinion of a veterinarian in light of his deteriorating health. Following a battery of examinations, the veterinarian concluded that Capitan was also suffering from renal failure, a condition for which there was no effective cure. The family had to make the difficult choice to lessen Capitan's suffering. To give Capitan a last night at the cemetery, beside his owner's grave, plans were made for the veterinarian to come the next day and euthanize him quietly. But the events that followed would turn out to be more tragic than anybody could have predicted, leaving everyone deeply saddened. Miguel's mother went to the cemetery early in the morning in the hopes of spending one more hour with Capitan before the tough choice had to be made. She came to a disturbing understanding as she got closer to the grave. Capitan seemed as if he were still sleeping soundly. She was extremely affected by his odd silence. Even in his old and weak form, Capitan would usually stir and move toward anybody who came near him. As Miguel's mother approached the grave with caution, the heartbreaking reality appeared. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the overwhelming destruction swept over her. The night had seen the death of Capitan. His illnesses had gotten worse before the planned veterinarian visit. The devoted dog, who had spent more than 10 years vigilantly guarding his owner's last resting place, had at last achieved tranquility and was reunited with Miguel. Miguel's mother shed tears throughout her loss, which were a mixture of sadness and, to a certain degree, relief. It was clear that her son and Capitan had an unshakable link that lasted throughout their lives and even into death. They were reunited when Capitan was buried in a modest cemetery above Miguel's. To honor Capitan's steadfast devotion and love, the family hosted a little service. This moving story ends with Capitan sleeping under a cozy blanket, once more next to the owner he loved with all of his canine heart, even though he had lost his master 12 years prior. Fortunately, Capitan became well known in his community as a result of his heartwarming tale. The community created a lovely memorial in the dog's name to celebrate his unwavering loyalty. This act guaranteed that Capitan, one of the most devoted dogs in the world, will always be remembered as a symbol of steadfast loyalty. How do you feel about this amazing story? Do you know of any other animal who showed as remarkable devotion and love as Capitan did? Tell us about your experiences in the space provided for comments below. I hope this video was enjoyable. Please consider sharing it with your close ones and give it a thumbs up. Additionally, click the bell symbol to ensure you don't miss any channel updates. I'm grateful.